Hopefully you guys are having a fantastic day as always. And today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the Spider-Man 2004 adaptation comic book, where we go with the Spider-Man 2 book. Now, we've done coverage on the Spider-Man 1 comic, so if you guys haven't already checked that video out, do make sure you do, because, some of this artwork is just really amazing, and the story is just really well done, where, we finally have a comic book of the actual movie, Tobey Maguire movies, and Spider-Man 2 is one of my favorite movies, so when they made this into a comic book back in the day, I'd always rent this out in the library because I'd always want to read it. So I'm really happy that we have this book, and I think it was an exclusive. I'm not sure if it was an exclusive or not, but it's really hard to find, and it took me a lot of time to find the scans of this book and to actually, get these videos done for you guys. So, I'm really happy that we're going to be talking about Spider-Man 2. So let's get right into the comic book here. So it cuts off with, we have Spider-Man's pretty much talking about, Mary Jane, about what's going on, and he's pretty much just recapping everything about Mary Jane and stuff, and that he's pretty much remembering what he did after Spider-Man 1, and he finally sees that she's on Broadway now, which is just really interesting. And that's where we have Mr. Aziz. He comes in and he's just telling Peter, you have these pizzas to deliver 42 blocks away, you can't be late this time. And we have Mr. Aziz just gives him 5 boxes of pizza, and he makes him go down the street, which is really funny. And that's where we have Spider-Man with the pizza time. He starts delivering Joe's pizzas down the block, and he's really happy. And he's still, it's funny because you see Spider-Man swinging, and he still makes it late. He's swinging, and you think he would be the most fast person to make it there in time, but somehow he's still late. He's probably fighting crime, and she pretty much just says you're late, I'm not paying for those. And Spider-Man's just oh right, yeah, I'm sorry about that. And then we have J. Jonah Jameson, it cuts to him, and he's just saying that I don't pay you to be a sensitive artist, Parker. I pay you to take pictures of the masked psycho. And he's just you're right, Jameson. You're just 300. And he's just that's outrageous, done. And it's crazy because it's just the whole movie, and I just love how they ended up doing this. And it's a really well done comic book, and I find the pacing, with J. Jonah, where it's cutting back and forth, it's really well done. And that's where we go to Dr. Connors, and we have Peter's pretty much just saying I'm so sorry I missed your class, and he's my class is over, and he's just pretty much you see me standing here. We have that scene where it's just really funny because you just get your paper on nuclear fusion done. They're talking about Doc Ock, Otto Octavius. And, we're talking about how, apparently Dr. Connors knew about Otto a lot before, which is really interesting because, that would have been a really cool dynamic if he was the Lizard. And, he's pretty much just saying, I won't screw it up this time. And he's just, glad to hear it because I know that you won't. And then it cuts to, it's Peter's birthday. They're all saying happy birthday. And we have all three of them there. They're talking. It's just really cool. And that's where it cuts to the moment with, MJ and Peter. And, we have MJ and Peter pretty much just talking about how, she's on Broadway now. And, we have Peter pretty much just, he wants to tell her something. And then, we have MJ saying that, he's seeing somebody. And he's just it's a boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. We've seen it before. And, it's just really funny because, we have Peter talking to her. And that's where the one guy shows up, instead of he shows up in his vehicle, he just kind of walks over there. And it's just Peter just sees it and he's just okay, yeah, I'm out of here. And then we have, it cuts to Aunt May and Peter. And, he's oh no. And then there's a bill on the ground that just pretty much just says this is an urgent thing. And Peter's just talking to Aunt May about Uncle Ben, on how Aunt May misses Uncle Ben, and they have a moment together as well. And he's just he's really worried about her. And then it cuts to the next day, which we've never seen this in the movie, and this is where the second argument to Peter and Harry is about Spider-Man and him killing his father. And we have Harry actually lash out at Peter, like he's just like, because of Spider-Man, like he's dead, like I was there, I saw it. And you know, in Peter's mind, he's like, I was there as Spider-Man. And there we have, you know, Otto Octavius. You know, he finally meets Otto, and you know, Otto's pretty much just telling him like has timeless efforts. You know, he's been doing this whole thing with this project. You know, with his, you know, his whole life's work is on the line here, and that's where he finally meets, you know, Peter Parker. You know, they're talking about experiments, and you know, this comic really does dive deep into the experiments of like what they're talking about. And you know, they're just saying like, you know, they don't want to blow up the city and stuff, and then they have lunch, and it's just a really cool comic book. And it would cut to you know, Otto's wife pretty much talking about how like she actually loves Spider-Man. And you know, they would be talking about Spider-Man, and you know, Otto would say, you know, Spider-Man needs to get a life. He wants, you know, he wants all this stuff. And this is where we kind of see the hatred towards Spider-Man a little bit for Otto. Like, he didn't really hate him, but you know, when you say that, it's just like, you know, he does have a little hate towards him. And you know, they're just talking about how like, you know, they both love science. And you know, that's where, you know, it comes into, you know, Peter's mind that, you know, the words that he said with the love and all that stuff with like MJ and all this science. And you know, he would really talk about it, and he would just be like, you know, like I gotta do something about this. And then, you know, we have Mr. Dickovich just say like rent, and you know, that's where we have you know, Spider-Man's just like, or Peter, you know, it doesn't matter how we say it, but you know, he just talks about like, how much can I get for those like flowers and stuff. He gets the flowers, he actually buys them, and then, you know, we see an image of just Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. He's just so mad because he sees a police siren. He's just like, you know, I gotta do this. And he goes, and he ends up going towards, you know, the car chase. That's going to be part 1 for the Spider-Man 2 adaptation comic book. Now, this is just going to be an amazing comic to dive deep, so this is going to just be part 1. Part 2 and 3 are coming soon. And you know, I really liked how Spider-Man was, you know, the pacing with everything has been really good with him meeting Otto Octavius and everything that's been happening where, you know, he was delivering pizzas. So, you know, this is going to wrap up the first part of the comic book. And if you guys are going to stay tuned for the second and third part, do make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss anything, and turn that bell on so, you know, you have your notifications on. But anyways, as always, thanks for tuning in, and have a great day.